All right, man, I'm back with another One Piece video. This is why you should watch / read One Piece. All right, now, y'all know, like, if you know me, I just started watching One Piece. I'm on the fourth episode, but I've been watching, the newer episodes, things like that. So I'm still, in the beginning of it, very, very beginning of it. Like, if, I'm saying, watching or just, what I'm saying, keep watching clips or whatever. But anyways, man, this is why you should watch it or read it, whichever one you like, or do both, you know what I'm saying? But we finna get into this video. Hit the like button, comment down below when you started watching One Piece or reading One Piece. Hit the subscribe button, man. Let's get into this video.
If I were to try and explain the appeal of long-running shonen storytelling, it would be that these are stories designed to go on for a very long time, and so we inevitably spend a much greater amount of time getting to know their worlds and characters, over the course of which the kind of relation we form with them inherently changes. As rather than being something consumed and then moved on from, these are series that sink into our daily routine and often become a constant, gentle, comforting background noise in the days that make up our lives. And this has been true for me for the vast majority of my life. There's rarely a time I am slowly working my way through one of these long-running series, the best of which have become some of my favorite stories I've ever experienced. But it's also a style of storytelling that seems inherently detrimental to itself. Even the very best in the industry have succumbed to the pressure of producing a long-running weekly manga, the eventual fatigue of which has caused even the most monstrously talented authors to either drastically reduce their release schedule or suffer a long-term drop.
Yeah, that's one thing about One Piece, but they've been pushing out these episodes in manga chapters for the longest.
There is one artist who, despite the intense lifestyle of being a weekly mangaka, still creates his story with the same energy and vigor as he did 2 decades ago, with a series that's still as loved by its fans now as it was at the heights of its popularity.
See, that's one thing about, One Piece that is doing something that other animes aren't. It's continuing, it hasn't stopped. Unlike, Dragon Ball, which was supposed to stop many of times. Naruto was stopped. But now, what I'm saying, they're back up, but they stopped, for a period of time, for a long time. Same with Bleach. I know Bleach coming back now. I haven't watched Bleach, but I've heard about it. And then of course all the new animes, but no one really cares about those, right?
That artist is Ichiro Oda, and that story is One Piece.
That's not One Piece.
The most notable thing I could say about One Piece in the modern day is that,
see, like, you can't not give props to the big three. And the best. Okay, so my opinion, the big three. I haven't watched Bleach, but the best story, in my opinion, is Naruto. I haven't seen One Piece yet. I'm in the works of it. But it's Naruto in my opinion because I've watched it all the way through. Dragon Ball's not in the big three. My favorite anime is Dragon Ball, but my favorite story is Naruto. Dragon Ball doesn't have a great story in my opinion. It's like, it is what it is. Fight scenes. Everybody there for the fight scene. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But anyways, yeah, One Piece, props to One Piece for keep going, not stopping. I know the story is good. I just haven't, watched it yet and know about every character to know the whole story yet. So, but I'm getting there. I found out that Gold Roger is Luffy's dad. That's something. Hey, that's something. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like he was born for this, just like Naruto was. You know what I'm saying? Because his dad was the fourth Hokage. So it's kind of like in the same sense there. But they're bringing characters. We're gonna get there though, because it seems like it's a good story. It might pass Naruto in my opinion of Naruto's story. Okay, I'm not saying that Naruto's better than One Piece. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it is. I haven't seen One Piece yet, so that's why I'm just saying that.
It's still good, and sailing the Grand Blue with the Straw Hats is still a blast, with many fans attesting that the current arc is one of the best in the series' history, and I'm inclined to agree. But the question is, how? How does a series stay interesting and relevant after 20 years? And what is it that makes its fans still so loyal to it? And if you've never read One Piece,
well, we about to find out. Hey, he keep getting these gears. Actually, no. How do y'all watch that for so long? Though? Like, if he's only getting he's at his 4 gears, when we had 1,000 episodes, so you getting a gear every 400 episodes. Shit.
What could possibly make the massive commitment of it worthwhile?
No, because they introduced other devil fruits. That's why.
Well, my dear friends, the day has finally come for us to answer those questions. So let's lower the sails, set out towards the horizon, and talk about why you should watch/read One Piece.
Mm-hmm.
The major advantage of having a long-running series is that it allows the author to communicate a much greater degree of information to the reader.
Yep.
And while this can often be to a series' detriment, with many artists forced to prioritize longevity over quality, in the right hands it can be used to build worlds of immense breadth and scale, ones with stories and characters that would be completely impossible in a shorter context. And this is the primary strength of Eiichiro Oda as a writer, his ability to create and sustain a long-running narrative, and one of the primary ways he does this is by grounding his series in a tangible, believable world. While One Piece is
wait, hold on, what the
in a tangible
what the hell? It's a world of straight water, bruh? What? And just little islands? And then this middle thing? That's crazy. Hang on. This is a lot of islands. What the
believable world.
Iceland.
While One Piece is at its heart the story of the Straw Hat Pirates and their quest for the treasure One Piece, it's the detours and locations along the way that make up the primary bulk of One Piece's story. Each new location in the journey of the Straw Hats has its own unique identity, with its own customs, cultures, economy, and inhabitants.
He's driving a balloon.
And a huge part of the appeal of sailing the Grand Blue with the Straw Hats is uncovering these locations and discovering the mechanics of how they work. Oda has a way of giving even the most visually outlandish locations a tangible feeling of place and structure.
That's beautiful right there.
Take, for example, Whole Cake Island from the most recent arc. It's a magical land where every inanimate object is alive.
They got magic in here? Is that what a devil fruit is? Magic? So Luffy is a genie. That's what his awakening fruit is. That's what his Gear 5 is. He is a genie. Yeah.
And the buildings are constructed from confectionery. And at first it seems like a kind of Disney-esque paradise, until we find out later how the island became like this. Whole Cake Island is under the control of Big Mom, a massive hulking woman with the power to steal life directly from people and transfer it into everyday objects. A power she's used to transform the island into her own distorted.
Oh, so it's not magic. Those are people's souls she's putting inside of other objects. Oh, shit.
Wonderland, where no one can leave and people must sacrifice a segment of their lifespan as tax. This setup alone is already a pretty fascinating way to handle a location, but perhaps even more impressive is the detail that's gone into its creation. If you go to the One Piece wiki, you'll find pages of information about this one island alone, with detailed paragraphs on the 10 different locations that form it, including a floor-by-floor breakdown of Whole Cake Chateau, the home of Big Mom, including detailed descriptions of the first floor library, the 4th floor room of treasure, and the rooftop party hall. If you want to know what the weather is like on Whole Cake Island, where and how the residents get their food, or why there are skeletons near the seducing woods, all that information is there for you to dig out. In other words, Whole Cake Island has a tangible sense of geography about it. It feels real because Oda has...
Hey, look, man, if y'all comment, just know I am answering or reacting to all you guys' comments that you comment. Just so you know, what I'm saying? I'm not just saying comment and not looking at them. I'm looking at all the comments, man. So coming down, man. Coming down below, man, right now. All right.
Taken the time to develop it. And what's more, this is just one of the
Why you keep looking
many
at me, bro?
examples of the extremely fleshed out,
Hey, look
developed
at the video.
locations that make up One Piece's world. Zou is a massive forest filled with beast people located on the back of a giant elephant, run by a fierce warrior dog during the day and an equally fierce warrior cat during the night. Dressrosa is a giant city with a massive gladiatorial arena inhabited by bizarre toy people, which are all under the heel of a vicious false king. Thriller Bark is a giant haunted ghost ship that literally eats other ships and turns their crew into zombies. And they've all been fleshed out to a similar degree as Whole Cake Island. And it all comes together to create not just the feeling of one singular massive world, but the worlds within worlds that form One Piece's landscape. And the same ethos applies to the many, many characters who populate it. No character in One Piece is ever constructed in isolation, but rather each individual one has their own allegiances, political geography, history, and driving motivators, many of whom have relationships and backstories entirely isolated from our heroes, like how 100 Beast Kaido and Gekko Moria have beef with each other due to
100 Beast Kaido and Gekko Moria. I didn't know his name was 100 Beast Kaido. Why they call him 100 Beasts? He only a dragon. Gekko Moria. I don't know who the hell that is. Gekko Moria.
To the fact that Kaido was the one who killed Moria's entire crew, forcing him to create the undead army the Straw Hats face off against in Thriller Bark. These slices of character information are often revealed through what seem like tiny throwaway lines, only to become far more relevant to the story later on, to the point that I've lost entire afternoons trawling through the One Piece wiki, going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole, trying to understand how all these characters fit together to create the giant, ever-evolving world that is One Piece. And the fact that Oda has had hundreds of chapters to develop the world of One Piece like this means that he's been able to evolve it into a landscape that begs to be dissected and studied. And if you need proof of this, just look at the communities that have built up around its analyzation and discussion, such as the extremely popular One Piece podcast, currently on its 473rd episode, which discusses in extreme detail each, even entirely separate from the central narrative of One Piece's story. It's still an utterly fascinating landscape.
Where that cake's place at, bro? I don't see it on here.
That isn't to say, however, that the story that takes place in One Piece's world isn't vital to its success. It absolutely is. But perhaps just as important as the story Oda tells is the unique way he tells it. Oda is a master in what we're going to refer to as short-term and long-term storytelling. And to really understand why One Piece has endured over the years like it has, we need to understand his work from these two distinct perspectives. Short-term storytelling accounts for the moment-to-moment experience of consuming a piece of narrative, how good a job an author has done in laying out their work that makes it pleasurable to consume. And while I can think of a few manga authors I would consider technically stronger illustrators than Oda, I can't think of any who have the same innate understanding of how to actually make reading a page of manga enjoyable. And even then, when I say there are technically stronger illustrators than Oda, that's not to take away from Oda's work as much as it is to highlight what's special about it. Rather than concentrating on intense rendering or meticulous anatomical correctness, Oda's work has a highly organic, expressive quality to it. He's a master at caricature and stylization, often accentuating the proportions and shapes of his characters to extremes for some of the most hilariously goofy but also strikingly unique designs in the industry. And yet he's also adept at depicting emotion through his drawings, namely by pushing the facial expressions of the different characters as far as they'll possibly go. Joy, malice, desperation, sadness. He knows exactly how to depict the human face in order to give the reader the clearest possible conveyance not only of what a character is feeling, but just how intensely they are feeling it. In short, Oda is adept at conveying information through his images. And this carries right through to every aspect of his manga writing, including
Y'all see what I'm seeing? Y'all see that? I don't see what I'm circling.
the unique way he lays out pages. Go to practically any part of One Piece and what you'll be met with are pages dense with visual information. While manga is of course a visual medium, many series are content to let the dialogue do the lion's share of the storytelling, with the visuals merely serving as an identifier for who is speaking or to highlight character designs. But with Oda, his pages are dense with visual data, with a lot of the world building communicated through images alone.
Bro, what is up with One Piece world, bro? This is a whale. But yeah, his manga, I can see why people love reading this manga, bro. It's like straight pictures.
Take this page in the city of Zou, for example. At no point does anyone point out that the Beastmen use the fruit of the giant trees as their homes. That's information you only get by taking the time to explore the page for yourself. And yeah, it's a small detail, but that's kind of the point. Oda's pages are packed with these little visual touches, whether it's a small gag taking place in the corner of a crowd scene, the appearance of a semi-obscure character from a previous chapter, or any number of strange, often hilarious one-off character designs. Oda is an expert at cramming as much visual information into a page as possible, and that means reading and rereading through these chapters is often a surprising and rewarding experience. This visual density does sometimes run the risk of becoming cluttered, especially considering the amount of text that are present at any given time.
Yeah, I can see that.
But what really helps keep this in check is Oda's command over the mechanics of how to guide a reader's eye around a page of manga. The creation of sequential events from a single image is something we talked about a lot in our Genius of Dragon Ball video, but Oda may be the only author I've ever come across with as solid a grasp of this as Toriyama, and in some cases I'd say even exceeds him. Take this 1.5 page spread for example. We start off on the right with the Mink Men getting angry at Zoro, then Zoro in return getting angry back, then Luffy responding to Zoro, this dog lady adding to Luffy's response, and then an entirely different conversation taking place on the other side of the room. That's 5 sequential events from a single unbroken panel, and this creates the illusion that as our eye travels from right to left here, time is actively moving with it, which makes it feel like this is an actual event unfolding before us, and not just a group of isolated incidents. And if you're skeptical of this, just look at how less engaging this scene is if we insert some panel breaks. The flow is lost, and so is that sense that we are observing an actual scene unfolding. Oda has used this technique so often and in such minor situations that it nearly seems like something he's doing habitually. But he also pushes it in ways that I've never really seen before, my personal favourite example of this being this depiction of 100 Beast Kaido jumping off Sky Island. We get this panel of a silhouette standing on a massive precipice before lunging forward to the world below. We turn the page or scroll down and we get this beautifully handled piece of visual storytelling. Starting at the top right of the page, we get these 3 panel breaks, which cause our eyes to linger for just a moment, creating the very slight sense of anticipation and distance, before following the trail of Kaido's fall down through the clouds and slamming into the ground in a massive eruption that's even bigger than the island he's landed on.
I can see why y'all read the manga. If you do, it seems like he puts a lot of work into his manga, and that shows. That's great. That is amazing.
Any number of more generic ways that Oda,
I ain't gonna lie, this might be one of my favorite animes. I didn't watch it yet because it's so long, but we gonna get there. Dang, cause like the work he puts into his manga and his you know what I'm saying. So, it was Dragon Ball, but Dragon Ball they don't really give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? They just be like, yeah, another transformation. Whatever. But this
could have depicted Kaido's fall, but doing it this way serves 2 distinct functions. For one, it's just an incredibly fun page to read,
bigger than the island.
Really conveying with images alone the sense of velocity and impact of Kaido's massive body slamming into the earth. And second, this also serves as Kaido's introduction into the story, and the fact that impact is so well conveyed and that Kaido survives it so effectively establishes his immense physical strength and stamina, and thus setting him up as the massive threat he's most likely going to become for the Straw Hats later on, and all this from not even half a page. And so whether it's through the drawings themselves or through the actual construction and layout of his manga, there's always a sense that Oda is incredibly engaged with the visual storytelling of his work.
Yeah.
And the result is that One Piece is a joy to consume on a page-to-page basis. The simple act of reading.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, Oda pretty much just really wanted to like have the animation as closely to his story as possible. So that's why he added so much visual into it. You know, Dragon Ball has a lot of, you know, dialogue. So that's why, like, you know, the anime is different from the manga. But
One Piece feels good. But it's only when Oda's expertise in short-term storytelling is coupled with his ability to write and sustain a long-running narrative that the true strength of his manga becomes obvious. One Piece is a long-running story, but I think what separates it from so many other stories of this type is that even from its earliest days, it was always designed to be this way. Oda has actually been writing different versions of One Piece.
They ain't looking clean over there with that little suit. They ain't wanna even put mine on, you know what I mean? They're looking clean. Oh, they picked him up. Yeah, they picked him up. I just noticed they got the suit on, but he got one on too, and he ain't in this picture, so they picked him up. Okay.
Since he was a child. Okay. After being inspired by the cartoon show Vicky the Viking, he would fill his school notebooks with a story he only referred to as pirate manga. And this pirate manga would eventually evolve into the...
Alright, I'm gonna give y'all the names of what... Is that Blackbeard? I don't know who that is, but it don't look like him because he's not big. I only said it because he kind of looks like him right here in the face, the hat. But anyways, Law, right? That's Law, right? Zoro, Luffy. Don't know who the hell it is. I'm gonna call her ass Sakura. Don't know. Yeah. What Kid at? A Kid? Is it somebody named Kid or something in this?
Short romance Dawn, which would eventually evolve into One Piece. So Oda has been thinking of this narrative and world for a very, very long time. Many of even the most recent characters in One Piece have existed in Oda's mind for years. You can go back through his old interviews and see just how far-thinking the story of One Piece actually is. Or even just look back at One Piece's early chapters and see the seeds that Oda has planted. For example, the character Silvers appears in a flashback in chapter 19, only to actually appear in the story and become a prominent character later on in chapter 500. And Oda constantly does this, seeding clues throughout.
Yeah, see, that's something Dragon Ball does not do. They'll show somebody up early, and then they just forget about it.
Chapters of One Piece for us to discover and theorize over. Hell, I remember reading a blog post from 2015.
You know what I'm saying? They'll Dragon Ball, they'll say something, and then they'll forget about it. Just like Super Saiyan 3. Toriyama forgot about it in the fight against Vegeta in Super Saiyan 2.
Correctly predicted everything about Sanji's backstory that was revealed in the current arc, purely by virtue that his wanted poster said alive as opposed to dead or alive. Oda never feels like he's focused on just the next major arc or plot point, but instead on the long-running narrative of One Piece as a whole. And that's not even taking into account everything we don't know. As many of the threads as Oda has tied up during One Piece's run, there are so many more that are left tantalizingly open. How is it that Blackbeard is able to utilize 2 devil fruit powers at the same time? What was the gigantic Cthulhu-esque entity that appeared in the fog in the final panels of Thriller Bark? And my personal favourite, why in a nearly 900 chapter story about pirates has not a single character ever worn an eye patch? And of course the biggest of all, what exactly is One Piece? The fact that Oda has so continuously delivered on these long-term plant and payoffs means that it's very easy to believe that these are questions with answers, meaning that there is always an island on the horizon of One Piece's narrative, always a breadcrumb trail to lead you to the next major story, and discovering where these trails go and how intricately they're worked into the series overall makes reading One Piece extremely satisfying on a long-term basis. And so, One Piece is a beautifully entertaining experience in the short term, while also being highly rewarding on an entirely different level in the long term. And it's these two aspects together that explain why so much of One Piece's fan base has remained so loyal to the series over the years, and also a part of why so many people have become so invested in the characters of the Straw Hat Pirates. But before we dive into what makes Luffy and the crew so great, there's a little misconception I'd like to clear up first, and that is the criticism that One Piece has weak character writing because it lacks what people are referring to as character development. And I think it's important to draw a line here and define the difference between character development and character progression. Character progression can also be referred to as the narrative arc of a character. They start at A and eventually end up at B, and it's a powerful storytelling tool, but not one that is required for good story. Take Cowboy Bebop, for example. There is little to no progression in any of its three central characters. Jet, Spike, and Faye don't learn any life lessons or become better people, and that is kind of the point.
That's what I was saying with the beginning of One Piece to where I'm at right now. I'm just like, Luffy already has his character built, but it looks like he changes or other characters change as well in the story. So
points, but that doesn't mean they aren't well developed.
My bad.
Character development refers to how fleshed out a character is, their history, their goals, their strengths, their weaknesses, what their perspective on the world is, and how they came to view it that way. And while there isn't a great degree of character progression among the Straw Hats, each and every one of them is extremely well developed. Each one with a highly distinctive personality, from the stark indifference Zoro shows in most situations, to Frankie, Luffy, and Chopper's inexhaustible enthusiasm for the world around them. Each Straw Hat has their own unique charm, and each one has their own compelling and often heartbreaking histories. To this date, Brook's story of his final performance for his crew is about the only time I've ever cried while reading a manga. And fuck you, I'll cry whenever I damn well please. And even then, there is character progression, it just tends to happen very slowly. Just look at Usopp's journey from lying coward to Sniper King to actual competent member of the crew. As well written as the Straw Hat Pirates are individually, however, As well written as the Straw Hat Pirates are individually, however, their true appeal only comes through when they're considered as a
been
unit.
eating too much,
However, their
But your ass been looking like Big Mama, boy. Your ass been eating too much, boy. Need to calm down.
true appeal only comes through when they're considered as a unit, when considered as the Straw Hat Pirates. And to understand why, we need to first understand what being a pirate in One Piece's world actually means. The choice to become a pirate in One Piece means that you've essentially decided to shirk off the constraints of society, choosing to live outside world law and instead forging your own path and creating your own way of life. And forming a pirate crew means that you've found a group of people willing to share in these values. In other words, you've found friends willing to accept you for who you are and who will fight for your way of life. This is the concept of nakama that is so pervasive throughout One Piece, which translates roughly to friend, comrade, or crewmate, or as the One Piece fans have
Nah. I'm not letting that slide. Because we seen in the beginning of One Piece, that fat lady, who I reacted to, you know what I'm saying? So go watch that episode if you haven't watched it, my reaction. They was scared of her. You know what I'm saying? So they wasn't a comrade, that was her comrade or her friends, you know what I'm saying? So
consider it someone who is closer than family. And this is the bond shared by Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats. It's obvious that each one in their own way is both proud and delighted to be part of the crew. They like spending time with each other and exploring the world together, and this is something consistently reinforced by Oda in his many coloured illustrations of the Straw Hats, most of which depict them just hanging out and having a good time. And I love these pages because they really get across the camaraderie felt by these characters and the friendship they share. Each member of the Straw Hats also has their deeper reasons for wanting to be part of the crew, as each member has at some point lost someone extremely close to them, and that event usually causes them to lose their place within the world, a place they eventually only rediscover upon joining the crew. And I think this only furthers the appeal of the Straw Hats. They're a group of friends who have found each other in a massive sprawling world and who value that friendship more than anything. And over the course of One Piece, it's hard not to feel drawn into this dynamic yourself. like you aren't in some small way part of the crew. And I think this is a primary reason why so many people feel such a strong emotional investment in the familial concept that is the Straw Hat Pirates. But it's also this same emotional investment that Oda leverages in order to create the most dramatic moments of tension and conflict within One Piece's story. While Luffy and Co face many dangers throughout their voyage, nothing ever feels as high stakes as when the unity of the Straw Hats is threatened. There's various points in the journey when, due to either external or internal factors, a member of the crew will decide to leave of their own accord, and these inevitably become some of the most emotionally impactful moments of the entire series.
Bro, somebody tell me, is that girl with the little pink hair or orange hair or whatever, is she gonna end up like Sakura? Just let me know.
One such example is early on in the fantastic Water 7 arc. After sustaining repeated damage over the course of the journey, Luffy decides that it's time to condemn the crew's old ship, the Going Merry, a decision that Usopp takes umbrage with, as up until this point he has been the one maintaining the ship. But it's obvious that his actual real worry is that he too will eventually be left behind by the Straw Hats. Tempers flare and the situation quickly spirals out of control, as Usopp declares to the shock of the others that he's decided to leave the Straw Hats, and it culminates in a brutal showdown between Luffy and Usopp to decide which one will take ownership over the Going Merry. It's one of the best fights of the entire series, but what always stays with me about it is the visible effect the encounter has on the rest of the crew, each one visibly shaken by the violent clash of their captain and former friend. As nothing is more upsetting to these characters than the breakdown of the family they've all grown to be a part of. It's a beautifully sad episode, and one I really encourage you to go check out. It's one of the better produced episodes of the anime, and even if your example
because I don't want to be, you know what I'm saying, spoiled
to create a palpable, justified sense of fear and danger within a character. My personal favorite example of this being the terrifying Don Quixote do Flamingo. Now, we spent way too much time in the last video going through a character's backstory, and this video is already insanely long, so unfortunately, we don't really have time to go through it. So, moving quickly along, god fucking damn it, okay, I can't help myself, here we go. Don Quixote do Flamingo was born to the most elite class of family, known only as the World Nobles or Celestial Dragons. A class of people of such wealth and power that they can commit atrocities in public without any fear of legal repercussion. A young Doflamingo greatly valued this elite status, until one day his father declared that the family would be abandoning their life of excess and lordship in exchange for living an honest life as regular people, and in doing so disregarded their noble status, a decision they'd come to regret. Banished from the sacred land of Merios, the family began their new life as regular citizens, only to return to their home one night to find it set ablaze. Word had spread to a nearby village about the noble family no longer under government protection, and it brought out the seething, long-term hatred its people felt for the Celestial Dragons, a hatred that took the form of a series of violent assaults against Don Flamingo and his family. Persecuted and driven from their home, the family were forced to take refuge in squalor, eating only garbage to survive. There, their father, now desperate and afraid,
from riches to rags, oh my,
contacted
riches to trash,
the World Nobles in the hopes of returning his terrified family to Merios, but he was met with only scorn, and he and his family were abandoned to the cruel world they had chosen to become a part of.
Cause his little daddy.
The continuing ordeal slowly took its toll on Doflamingo's mother, who grew more ill with each passing day, until eventually her life slipped away. And just as it seems like the remaining family had nothing left to lose, they were once again attacked by the scornful villagers, only this time they were captured, tied to their former burning mansion and tortured. The experience awakened within Doflamingo a great rage, a rage that manifested itself in the form of his Emperor's Haki, which he used to subdue the villagers and save his remaining family.
What's Emperor's Haki?
But at this point, Doflamingo was so consumed with the hatred for the people who tormented him, hatred for the Celestial Dragon, burn it.
That's gonna be another.
Luckily, healthy and Rob, the belief chief
Let me skip all this.
Frustrating. It's common for the focus to shift from character to character, with many fights occurring simultaneously. And while this sometimes creates a great sense of spectacle and chaos, it can also kill the momentum of a particular encounter, cutting away just as things are getting heated. And again, this is a problem way worse in the anime. The biggest barrier to entry, however, has to be its extreme length. Anyone new to the series could spend months and even years trying to catch up on it, and wait many more for its eventual conclusion. But I think, in a way, this is also the series' biggest strength. When I think of what I love about One Piece and what keeps me coming back, it isn't the eventual promise of finding out what One Piece is, or the conclusion to arcs that I know are most likely dozens of chapters away, but rather, it's just the opportunity to return to this world and spend more time with these characters. To see them fight and struggle and chase their dreams, and in turn, see how the world's many moving parts react to them. This is the kind of story that could only be told over years. One carefully built over hundreds and hundreds of chapters, where each corner of its world feels realized, and yet where each horizon still brims with potential. And if you're new to One Piece, this is the reason I think it's still a commitment so worth making. As it's a story to get lost in, one to grow up alongside, and one with worlds and characters that will stay with you for years to come. And this, friends, is the best reason I can think of why you should watch / read One Piece.
Look, bro. Every time I kind of watch some One Piece shit, it got me smiling because I like how it sounds, right? Y'all need to chill out, but I know it's a good story, but like how y'all making it sound is crazy, bro. It's crazy, bro. It is crazy, bro. But if you made it this far in the video, man, comment down below, hit the like button and subscribe, man. There you go.